Welcome back to Storytime. In today's episode, we're going to be starting a brand new prompt for the month of July, which is summertime. My first writing prompt is, while on a camping trip with your friends, you find the cabin you've been renting is being visited by something strange, eerie, and supernatural. Our first story comes to us from user TuffenRuff's. Summertime is the best time of year, if you ask me. It's warm, which in Oregon is not to be understated. It's sunny, sometimes. It's the only time you can have a sense of freedom. Or at least you can if you and your friends from college rent a cabin and take a vacation in the backwoods for 2 weeks. Danielle, Travis, Kim, and her boyfriend Russell and I had all decided that we would go splitsies on a cabin on Lake Kamasi for part of the summer. And when we pulled up and got a good look at the cabin, I knew it was everything that Airbnb had said it was. The cabin was set back in the woods, maybe 100 feet from the lake, which reflected cool and dark in the summer sun. It was surrounded by sighing pines and firs, and the whole place was beautifully silent. We had driven nearly an hour down progressively narrower and more rustic roads until at last we were on nothing so grandiose as a gravel path through the woods, when it finally opened up to reveal the cabin ahead of us. I had been the one to make the reservation, and I was happy to find that the cabin was rustically decorated with deer antlers and wooden furniture, and that it was spotlessly clean and comfortable. We found a note from the owner welcoming us on the kitchen table, which read, "Dear guests, welcome to the Brown Bear Cabin on Lake Kamasi. You will find fresh linens in the hall closet and towels in the bathroom closet. The cabin runs primarily on solar power, so please limit electricity use to after dark hours. Please be sure to lock the dumpsters, throw out your trash, as bears are active in the area. Also, please remember to put the nail strips under the window before you go to bed to prevent critters from climbing the sills. The nearest grocery store is the Walmart on Route 2. You will find a local map with points of interest, trails, and local amenities on page 2. Please feel free to make use of the fishing gear in the entryway closet and the cooking utensils in the kitchen. If you need anything, my wife and I are only 10 minutes away, and our number is on the attached business card. We hope that you will have a wonderful time here at Brown Bear Cabin. Sincerely, Tom and Beth McCready." After doing a walk through the cabin, poking into the rooms, and excitedly looking out of the windows, we all scrambled to claim beds and put up our stuff. I got stuck sharing a room with Travis, who snores, while Kim and Russell unceremoniously took the queen-size bedroom for themselves. And then we all changed into our bathing suits and headed down to the lake. The solitude at the water's edge was unbroken. There was no sound of traffic or any visible signs of human life beyond some plastic lounge chairs and a thoughtfully placed steel fire pit. I took a long moment to simply breathe in the sweet summer air. The smell of sleepy woods, cold water, and sunshine filling my nose gave me a deep sense of tranquility. Or it did until Travis, howling like Tarzan, ran straight into the lake with a splash and explosion of water. He dove under the surface and then immediately popped out again, already starting to look pale due to the shocking cold. Idiot. This was likely snowmelt water coming down from the nearby mountains. It couldn't have been more than 50 degrees. And I mentioned this to an uncertain-looking Danielle who was eyeing the water dubiously. Kim immediately started sunbathing near the water's edge, while Russell and I unpacked the cooler from the car and passed beers out to everyone. After the group split up to enjoy our own activities, I again took a moment to enjoy the quiet of the woods. There was nobody else for miles. The cabin backed onto the wilderness, which stretched unbroken beyond the horizon, and the nearest neighbors lived well out of sight and earshot through the woods. It was nice to be alone. "Hey, I'm going to take a walk around the lake. You want to come?" Danielle asked, putting an oversized flannel shirt on over her bikini and pulling on her socks and shoes. Danielle was one of those sorts of outdoorsy girls that spent her childhood turning over rocks and looking for salamanders and splashing around in creeks. She was 20, making her the youngest of our friend group, and was a cheerful, athletic girl with auburn hair and freckles. I had a low-key crush on her, and although she never let on about it, I think she knew. Just based on the way that she would choose to sit or stand next to me when we were in groups, or the way she would adjust her bra straps when she looked at me, had me wondering if maybe she reciprocated my feelings. Well, there was no better time to find out, I told myself, and besides, romantic walks in the woods aside, it was genuinely dangerous to go into the woods on your own, so I readily agreed. We told the others where we were going and set off along the water's edge, being sure to keep the lake on our left as we walked so as not to get lost. Danielle was an easy person to talk to, and it wasn't hard to carry on a conversation with her. I've never been good at reading people, but it seemed to me like we had some chemistry. I was girding my loins to at long last bring up this subject when she stopped and looked down at something at her feet. "Oh, look at this," she said, leaning down to look at a track in the mud. I looked, and I was surprised to see the clear 5-toe impression of a human foot in the mud. Someone had been walking barefoot near the water's edge. "Huh," I said, puzzled. "I wonder who's wandering around barefoot out here." "I don't know," Danielle said, looking around. "But whoever it is, he must be really tall. Look how long the stride is." "Yeah," I said, putting my booted foot next to one of the tracks. "Look at the size. This guy must be a giant." She was walking alongside the footprints and had to take 2 steps to match every one of the tracks. I was starting to get an eerie feeling about this. Now look, I'm not a scaredy cat. I like to think that I'm a reasonably intrepid guy, and I don't startle easily. But there was something unsettling about seeing those tracks. Maybe I've read too many stories or seen too many movies, but even though the rational part of my brain immediately shut down the possibility, there was still a quiet but insistent voice that said, "What if?" I mean, we were alone in the woods, nobody around for miles, and there was someone with big feet wandering around out here. Danielle had straightened and was looking around now. She was very still, and I could tell she was going through the same mental path I was. The sun seemed to have gone out of her, and she looked scared. She took a few steps towards me and whispered, "Let's go back. This is creeping me out." It was creeping me out, too. Everything seemed the same as before, the sun shining, birds chirping, the rustle of the breeze through the leaves. But now the silence seemed eerie, oppressive, like the woods were listening to us. I found my mouth was dry, and I was constantly alert for any sound or movement. Something in the reptilian part of my brain was telling me that everything wasn't right, that I needed to get out of there. I shook myself. This was ridiculous. I was a grown-ass man, after all. I was too old to be scared of the boogeyman. "It's probably just from the last group who rented the cabin," I said with confidence I didn't entirely feel. "That rock over there would make a great place for a picnic." "It rained yesterday," Danielle said, looking around the woods, backing away. "So those are fresh." I felt the dread creeping back when I heard her words. But still, I was a white, middle-class, hetero man out with a girl I liked. Society said I wasn't allowed to be afraid. I smiled at Danielle reassuringly and patted her on her shoulder. "Sure, let's head back," I said, already resolving to forget about the tracks as soon as possible. We headed back towards the cabin, and I won't deny that every step we took away from the tracks made me feel better. Danielle seemed to relax too as we approached the cabin and smelled the scent of grilling hamburgers and could hear the sounds of Travis's loud voice. We were returning to civilization, and everything was going to be okay again. I chuckled to myself. We were just getting worked up over nothing. So what if we saw some big tracks? Anyone could have made them. It was silly to be afraid. Almost mockingly, I turned around to see the spot we had found the tracks at, now a good ways off on the lake. There was nothing to be scared of. The woods were just being creepy. We had gotten spooked by nothing. I felt the blood rush away from my head, the hair on the back of my neck stand up, as my blood turned to ice. Just for a second, out of the corner of my eye, I had seen something. It was so quick I couldn't be sure I had seen it, but the image was etched into my brain. A face. A dark, savage-looking face, with sunken eyes, wide nose and mouth, and haloed with black hair, had been peering at me from behind a tree, and then ducked back behind cover. It had been the movement that had attracted my attention. I stared, fixated at the spot it had been, but there was no movement. No sign of life beyond the twittering birds and the buzzing insects. Danielle must have noticed me freeze, because I was aware of her standing next to me, trying to see what I had seen. But had I really seen it? The face could well have been the dappled shadows cast by leaves moving in the breeze. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Yes, it had to be. There was nothing there. Nothing moved. I let out a sigh and smiled, shaking my head, my whole body relaxing. "Just jumping in shadows," I said reassuringly to Danielle, gently putting a hand on the small of her back and guiding her back to camp. "These woods got me jumpy, I guess." "Yeah, me too," she said uncertainly as we rejoined the others and heard Travis's familiar guffawing laugh at some joke Russell had told. We were safe. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you would like to submit a story for us to read, you can do so at the r/creant world subreddit using the Flare StoryTime. Till next time, see you later.